My name is Angelo Di Benedetto.
My name is Bonnie Dufour.
Emil Andrew Sekarak.
George Rowe.
Howard Katz.
Henry Rapsowitz.
Jackie Potter.
John Moskaluk.
Joanna Smigilski.
Ken Dunn.
Lena Knapp. My maiden name, Gadiance. Lee Opal Goodall Halliburton.
Linda Cran Benson.
Luis Parada.
Margaret Delavidovi.
Patrick McInnes.
Renzo Di Benedetti.
Robert Savelli.
Roger Yacchetti.
Sam Morielli.
Tim Dockstader.
Walter Boccolone.
Walter Furlan.
Idyllic. It was a wonderful, wonderful area to grow up. Very congenial. So I think pretty well everyone knew you because it was such a close community.
There were games or places that didn't cost you. And there was the swimming pool, there was Scott Park, there was Woodlands Park. It was passive, you could go there. I think there was a ball diamond there.
A couple
of ball diamonds. You played tag, you played long range hide and seek. We had another game with a brick and a piece of stick and a big long broom handle, and it was called Relievo. And you snapped a small piece of wood up in the air and then tried to hit it with this, and the farther you could go, the more points you had. The fact that you made do with very little and you made your own fun and your own pleasure, that would be valuable remembering.
Probably in the 20s, when horses were still being used, a big drinking fountain for horses filled with water, and I remember there was never anything for humans.
And there were a lot of dairies around and stables on ordinary streets, like Royal Oak Dairy, and they'd have horse barns, Borden's, Silverwoods.
Yeah. North side of Barton Street, there was a Silverwood Dairy. And in the early days, they used to deliver milk with horse and buggy or horse and wagon.
And you would order from the milkman so many bottles, pints or quarts, different kinds of milk with cream at the top, different kinds of bread. The horses kind of knew the route. The horses were fed with an oat bag right on the street while the guy went in and had his lunch or had a beer. They had something going from the bridle of the horse and a big metal stopper that sat on the road, and so the horse wouldn't walk away.
An anchor.
Horses were popular, milk and bread wagon. I don't know what happened to the horse, but the horse collapsed, and they had to come and shoot the horse. That would be really something for a young boy to see.
They were very popular in the spring because people were looking for fertilizer. Right?
Which you could pick up off the street and put in your garden.
During those years, the war was on, and the street itself was the United Nations. There was never any problem during the time that I was there. We played together. The people got along extremely well.
The war started. They rounded up the Italians, and a lot of them were placed in camps, which was a terrible part of the war. I know some families that they lost their business, they lost their house, and they left their families almost penniless because the men were arrested and sent away.
And it was felt that Hamilton would be a target if there was any type of air war here.
At night, during the war, we have to turn all the lights out, and you had to use a flashlight, and you had to put all the blinds down because they thought that the Germans were going to come and bomb us, so it was an air raid.
We had a street warden, Mr. Fabian, and he would walk up and down the street, making sure, this is an evening, making sure that everyone's blackout blinds were drawn so that no light was visible to the street. And we had searchlights crisscrossing in the sky for the simple reason that Hamilton was a manufacturing city with huge steel mills and many factories.
I don't remember as being afraid, but, guess some people were. During the war, you never knew what was happening,
Those were the days of ration books. If you bought meat or sugar or whatever, you had to present it. I think you were allowed so many rations for each person in the household.
We had to make everything, even the hockey stick. We were happy to have the stick next morning. Even if it lasted 10 minutes, it was free. You'd say, oh man, I hit that thing so hard. And boom, the stick broke away. It sounded like we were racing it. Ask Dad, hey, help me up, And you said, buy me one, and he'd look at you like, crazy. So you make them, because you guys break them stick. I did have a pair of skates, probably hand-me-down, and we'd go in the winter time north of Barton Street. That's now into the industrial area, and we'd play pickup hockey. We had our ordinary gloves, and I remember having big, thick magazines on your shins that you held there with elastics.
Woodland Park, they had an ice rink. My brother Joe and I would go every evening, and they had a hot house that you could go in and change into your skates and leave your shoes there. And that was fine a few times, but then one time when we went back to change into our shoes, Joe's fairly new shoes were stolen. So he had to go home in his skates, and after that we had to go skating. We had to wear our skates to get there so that our shoes wouldn't be stolen again. Anyone that I can think of on our street, there might be very few exceptions that were church-going people.
There was a lot of churches on Barton Street that really contributed to helping the neighborhood.
I think a lot of our lives centered around church.
In the basement of St. Anne's Church, there used to be a boxing club, an Irish boxing club, and it went away for quite a while, but now it's back. So there is a boxing club in the basement of St. Anne's Church. My grandfather put the bells in St. Anne's Church.
Old Barton Street is the ringing of church bells. They weren't always at the exact same time.
Well, that happened because a lot of times the services were at different times. Our bells were quite extinct because the tower is very high. Of course, today they're all on timers. They're all electrically. You don't have anybody pulling the rope anymore. It would probably be a good job for somebody to have the old rope and go out there and pull it,
But to hear the bells and the chimes, especially the old St. Peter's one, was actually music and songs. The chimes are lovely. And the church bells in general, there's that peacefulness.
And the time that they only used them was when my grandfather's youngest son drowned in the bay. So they rang the bells for the funeral for that time.
Whether you're a religious person or not, when you go down there and you look at that just awesome architecture, the artistry that's gone into those beautiful buildings, how unique is that? Where do you find that? This is something really special. So I hope that Hamiltonians appreciate that and hope that to survive.
There will be a bus on the corner of Sherman and Barton. My first bus when I came to Canada. I met a friend, and 50 years later, we're still friends. He happened to be on the bus stop as well. Apparently, my language was next to zero, and he started talking to me in English, and I says, no English. He says, are you Italian? I says, yeah. He said, I'm Italian too. The rest is history.
Well, the streetcars were confined to the track. Trolley buses were connected to the wiring where they could move back and pull over to the curb to pick people up. The streetcars couldn't do that.
The trolley buses, of course, it was a bus, but it had that rod that went to the wires.
The lines, as I remember, would be affected by wind. You know, rocking back and forth would knock it off.
And the bus driver had to get out, and then they just pull it down, and then they push it right up, because he was too busy driving, and all of a sudden these things come up, and so you stop, and maybe a couple of swear words, and go, dropping quite often.
I remember we put stuff on the tracks, so we'd put a whole row of caps, and as the steel wheels of the streetcar went over, they would fire off all of these caps with the little bits of black gunpowder, cans that you wanted flattened right out, pennies, other stuff that you wanted to tease your buddy with, so you would put it on there, get it flattened out. That was a lot of fun.
A bunch of us go up on Barton Street, try and cause trouble.
Going to my grandmother's, we decided it would be a great deal to ring the doorbells of the businesses on Barton Street between Sherman and Fullerton.
So my friend Anna used to come quite often on Saturday, and my mom would always give us money to go to the Playhouse Theatre, which was on Sherman right near Barton. She always gave us extra money for treats. I don't know whether it was Anna or I that decided we were going to carry my two sisters into the theater and have extra money for candy. So the woman was very kind. We bought tickets from. She let us get away with it the first time, but she didn't weeks later when we tried again.
I know people who would put something where the mail was put, and where often if you had milk delivered, it would go there also. I know kids who used to, firecrackers especially, put firecrackers in these things and close them and run, or put some stupid thing inside there like a bag of dirt or something or whatever.
A garbage pail for your worst enemy. So you took the garbage pail, maybe 2/3 full of garbage, and you tilted it on their front door, rang the bell, ran away, they open the door, and the garbage pail comes in. Works every time.
Didn't turn out too well. I remember, if you can believe it, getting the strap in grade 1 for that. I guess it was a criminal offense.
At the time, it was a very viable business, busy area, just like any business area in any city.
So it was a really beautiful neighborhood when you had so many different nationalities. That's helped me today because I have a good sense, a peaceful sense about different people, where they come from and what language they have and their different customs and all that.
My family story is just like any person which like to work, to have a dream, and to succeed. We've seen a lot of immigrants, in Hamilton especially. We start with the builders, we start with the trades, and we succeed. But you have to have in mind the dream.
And any place along Barton Street, you could get pierogies, the Polish food. In St. Stanislaus, the Polish parish, they used to have a cabbage roll, kielbasa, pizza, pepperoni.
Polish couple, forgotten their name, but they made the best fish and chips in the world.
I can't remember all the names right now because there was so many of them. It was like every other corner. There's something going on.
In any place you used to go, 90% you find the owner.
And all the different recipes got invented. It's amazing how many things you can do with that same potato. So many recipes. It was fantastic.
And that apparently was actually an article in the paper. The Trocadero was the first to start pizza in Canada.
The Pantalone family, who ran the restaurant, they were all very good at what they did.
I remember the waitresses too. They were quite steady there. We went there for a number of years.
And the food was always very good Italian food.
Trocadero was built by an immigrant person. Trocadero had a dream.
I got to meet Little Beaver and...
Yeah, I remember even going down to the Forum with my dad when I was really young, watching the Red Wings play there.
The Forum. Well, it wasn't called the Forum, it was called the Barton Street Arena.
The Forum used to be, they used to call it the barn. And they had these great big pillars in it, where if you got a seat behind the pillar, you're always looking like back and forth to try to see the game going on, you know?
They had Forum benches also, where they were real benches. They certainly weren't comfortable. Right up at a 90-degree angle, you had a bench probably about 3-4 feet high behind you.
It drew large crowds, whether it was wrestling, whether it was something like the Globetrotters. Hockey games were all played there. So you always knew people that you were watching as a rule, like the Finn Cups and that sort of name of teams that we had in that.
The thing I remember is meeting Pierre Elliott Trudeau there in 1968. That's when the first time Trudeau ran. Trudeau mania at that point. The Forum was just packed. It wasn't the security, tight security they have around prime ministers today.
Henderson, who made the big goal in 1972, but he played in Hamilton from 1961.
My mom, even though she was due to have my brother anytime, she used to take us so we can watch wrestling. My dad used to be one of that would take the guys' coats, and if my dad was asked to do a joke, they would give him $100 and pretend to let a wrestler hit him, and all you seen was fake blood coming down. Dad fell back. They brought the ambulance, took him to the back. My mom grabbed us kids, and my dad sitting up bed, killing himself laughing. And my mom says, "You think this is funny?" Here, bang, and right in his eye, and then went into labor that night.
Yeah, they tore that down. In my day, I can't remember when they tore it down, but then they tore it down, and you can still see the houses there. They're all fairly new houses compared to the rest of Barton Street. Barton Street has always been a happy street. Happy people there, good businesses, hardworking people. It'll always be in my memory. I mean, it's a street that I remember more than any other street.
I respect both the color and the workers, because without the workers, nobody survive. I served a lot of people a free haircut because they had no job, and everyone support, every workers support the workers.
Growing up, it wasn't like they got now. I mean, Barton Street was a night afraid to live.
Well, yeah, of course. Over time, went from that robust commercial district, which this was before I was even around. I mean, we have a lot of history here from some of the stores that were in operation. Very robust. I mean, it was local communities, local doctors. Everything was, banks were here, liquor stores were here. Everything was here. So that's all gone away.
The last 10 years, the street has declined, so I hope it's not going to last very longer.
Well, a lot of people are afraid to come down to Barton Street. And the word down means down.
A lot of policing, a lot of street conflict, fights, a lot of people looking into getting involved with the sex trade workers. And that is like an ongoing bad circle of situations that make that neighborhood very unsafe.
I could cry for Barton, I really could. I wish to God I could see it get better.
You hear it all the time that people are afraid to come down here. I don't see it because I've lived here. It seems safe enough to me.
And my neighbor, he lives 3 or 4 houses up, was on the curb with a big bucket full of cold pop. And as the garbage trucks went by, he handed each fellow a can of pop, made them feel comfortable, let them know how much he appreciated their work, and sent them on their way. That was the nicest human gesture I've ever seen anybody do anywhere. Voluntarily, well, if that is indicative of a dangerous neighborhood, I think people are sadly mistaken.
You know, for me, I had a lot of good years running the business here. I can see a bit of a revival. I see new families moving into the area. So hopefully that will change the neighborhood and the business will be able to come back.
And it's so pleasing to me to see some revival of what's going on in the Barton Street area.
One of the last really authentic communities in Hamilton that hasn't been gentrified yet. There's still a lot of authenticity here.
I'm not one for gentrification, but I know sometimes you have to clean up your area and, invite other businesses to come in and share the wealth.
We can't go back to where it was because other things have changed. But I would hope that more things for people to take part in.
Let the people drive the change is what I would say is the main point here. People down here on the street.
Keep a person busy. Keep a person not to do the wrong things because it's occupied. When a person doesn't do nothing, then it's a time for the troubles.
But if they could look back at movies or something to show them that it can be a clean spot and the government helped a little bit, I think all those people on that street would chip in and do it right away. It would happen. I know it would happen.
Hope and prayer is it continues to be home.
And you can say good morning or good afternoon to almost anybody you pass on the street, and they will respond.
The love and the camaraderie and the friendship.
So it's wonderful, this is a sustainable community as far as I'm concerned.
I think I would say strong from humble beginnings.
Fell in love with Hamilton, and since my parents died many years ago, whatever, but I like Hamilton. It's Hamilton to me.
Well, it's been fun being on Barton Street.
I oftentimes think to myself, if I have a chance to say thanks for the memories, because they're pretty wonderful.